and some of them can have really good storylines. Like I can't remember the guy who had, the wolf guy who had
X-Men?
Yeah,
Wolverine?
Yeah. So Wolverine's story is super heavy and sad and gives context to why he is the way he is, etc. Heaps of people I know cried in the scenes that depicts like his past and whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I fall on the side, Michael, of not a big fan of superheroes. I mean,
I still wouldn't watch it.
I mean, I'm with the Dow British social realism, like Ken Loach's I, Daniel Blake. God,
extraordinary!
Came out depressed as a as a turtle.
Yeah, that was what it was designed to do.
Right. I mean, it was a 5-star film, but that's the sort of film I like. I like being challenged. I like being depressed. I like going to a film and having my evening ruined.
Do you? Well, that's fantastic, and I'm very pleased for you, Wallace. I'm not suggesting that everybody is going to want that.
Real filmmaking.
I think this is odd. Entertainment has always had a kind of a continuum, and at the one end is I want my evening ruined, and at the other end is I want to be uplifted, and I don't want to think for an hour and a half. And it's it's just the way the entertainment world works. I think that it's a bit unkind of them just to focus on the superheroes, because
is it mean-spirited of these
chick flicks
of these grand?
There's some ghastly films
of granddads of cinema, sort of thinking that they own the territory and actually no one else can have a role apart from the Scorseses of the world.
I think that they have a voice at saying, let's not lose sight of great art and cinema.
Absolutely.
They have an absolute responsibility for saying, this is something that that advances the prospect of what we see as symbolic or iconic cinema. But I don't think that you have to do that at the expense of saying, well, here's a group over here. I was a publisher. The reality was that the best books I published were not necessarily the ones that sold the most copies, but the audience was entitled to Dan Brown as much as they were entitled to Margaret Atwood. It wasn't my place to say.
Did you get frustrated by that? Because weren't you the head of HarperCollins?
I was, and Random House.
Gosh. So you get frustrated when the rugby books and cookbooks would fly off the shelves and...
Well, at HarperCollins not, because we were the cookbook publisher, but yes, I did. There were at times that I felt there was an unfairness in the fact that you put two books up one beside the other, and one was a jolly sight better at doing whatever that craft was than the other, and yet it somehow didn't land with the audience. But equally, I don't think that would have meant that I would have said, well, let's just ban thrillers and only publish one sort of thing.
I agree completely. I just think they have their places in the world.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be people that are going to go to the superhero movies because they want to escape from real life and they want to be delighted.
It's escapism.
Absolutely. And I look at my partner's sons and they don't want to go and watch Goodfellas. They want to go and watch, men like...
Downton Abbey?
Yeah. No.
Oh dear, have you seen that?
No. I want to. Any good? See, there's a movie.
Really?
Not entirely sure that I could endorse it.
Wallace, check out Avengers Infinity War, the biggest downer of an ending ever. Go and
make me miserable.
Go and see that. Good one, Michael Monaghan. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Ciao.
Checkpoint next. I'm back tomorrow.
Te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. E haere aki nei. Mike King's mental health charity is forced to pull the handbrake on free counselling sessions for teens after the money dries up in a matter of months due to overwhelming demand. So what happens now and whose responsibility is it? The mental health campaigner joins us live in the studio. There's harrowing evidence at day one of the public hearings at the Royal Commission into Abuse in State Care. A former South Island teacher pleads guilty to multiple sex offences against 2 young students. And bushfires threaten some of the ritziest suburbs in LA and creeped closer to millions of dollars of artwork at the Getty Museum. And scientists say they've found the birthplace of modern humans.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Leata with DNA. The Royal Commission investigating abuse in care has heard children would hear boys being raped at a state-run home in Lower Hutt and wonder when they were going to be next. The inquiry is for the first time hearing evidence publicly from survivors, their advocates, lawyers and researchers. 28 witnesses are being called to give evidence over the next 2 weeks at a hearing many have waited years for. This afternoon, Keith Whiffen, who was physically and sexually abused at the state-run Ipuni Boys' Home in Lower Hutt, told the inquiry he was not the only one.
I will never actually forget being locked in a room in one of the wings and the boy in the next room being raped by a staff member. And me wondering when was going to be my turn.
Abuse survivor Keith Whiffen. A witness in the case of a former Marlborough teacher convicted on charges of sexual misconduct with students believed he was in a relationship with the woman. The teacher, whose name is suppressed, admitted in the Blenheim District Court today 7 charges of sexual relations with minors and 2 charges of sending sexual material to minors. Tracy Neal reports.
It began with messages sent by text that escalated into a relationship described in court as one of trust. They met on several occasions over the next year, and the boy believed they were in a relationship. The woman began sharing explicit photos of herself via private social media platforms, and another student was invited to join in. A series of illicit meetings then began with 2 students. The woman was today convicted and remanded on bail for sentence in December. This is Tracy Neal.
A fight has broken out outside the Whanganui District Court between the families of slain woman Jasmine Wilson and the man accused of her murder. A 28-year-old man appeared in court today over her violent killing on August the 2nd. Lee Marama McLaughlin reports.
RNZ has been told a fight took place outside the courthouse afterwards, involving a member of the accused's family and those of Ms Wilson. Police say they were alerted to the altercation, but no one was injured or arrested. The 28-year-old has been in custody since late August on charges of assaulting and injuring Ms Wilson. The police have only recently charged him with her murder. He also faces new charges of assaulting Ms Wilson and threatening to cause her grievous bodily harm earlier in the year. Police have also charged him with assaulting 3 other people not related to the death of Ms Wilson. He's been granted interim name suppression and will appear in the Whanganui High Court next month. Koli Marama McLaughlin, tēnei.
The head of the Māori-led inquiry into Oranga Tamariki says whānau Māori have been coming to them in droves to share their stories about their poor experiences with the ministry. The parents of a 6-day-old baby social workers tried to take are refusing to participate in the ministry's review of the case. The intervention sparked complaints and 3 other wider reviews. The chair of the Whānau Order Commissioning Agency heading the Māori-led inquiry, Meripeka Raukawa-Tate, says it's had hundreds of people come forward, including the whānau who will not engage with the ministry.
Whether that was to a kohanga reo, whether it was to a whānau meeting, whether it was to another meeting that was called by our providers, our whānau order providers in their areas. So it has been very busy, but it has gone extremely well. We've had so many people come to talk with us and just to tell us their stories, and we were not surprised that they have been coming forward in droves.
Meripeka Raukawa-Tate says it will be an unsatisfactory outcome if the whānau won't engage with the ministry's review, but she hopes the other reviews will fill the gaps. Councillors say hundreds of young people have been left in the lurch after the Gumboot fund abruptly ran out of money, putting their treatment on hold. Some are continuing to treat clients for free before the next major funding top-up in 6 months. The fund was launched by Mike King's I Am Hope charity in April and gave people 19 years and under access to unlimited, fully funded treatment. Christchurch councillor Shireen Abdullah Shalim says there was no warning the money would be stopped. She says some of the people have such significant mental health problems and trauma, they really need ongoing support.
Some of these people have just told you the worst possible things that have happened in their lives, and they might be partway through processing that with you, and then all of a sudden it stops and these clients are left with absolutely no professional support.
Christchurch councillor Shireen Abdullah Salim. A biologist looking after a seal who may have been shot in the face at the weekend says the injury could change the sea creature's behaviour forever. Resident leopard seal Orpha, well known around Auckland's Waitemata Harbour, was spotted bleeding from the head on Saturday. The 3-metre mammal is recovering well, but 3 separate vets have confirmed the bleeding is likely the result of a gunshot wound. Orpha has never attacked anyone, but marine biologist Brittany Mathias says that might change. It's coming up to 5:05. Netball New Zealand says it's entirely behind coach Nolene Taurua and it will be making a formal submission to the international body over the umpiring in the final Constellation Cup test on Sunday. After the series decider in Perth, Taurua said she was disturbed about the appointment process for the game. New Zealand was penalised 66 times in the defeat to Australia, having averaged 42 penalties over the first 3 tests. She says it was hard for players on both sides to adapt to the interpretations of an umpire who was given the whistle for the final game, having not refereed any of the earlier tests. Netball New Zealand's head of high performance, Keir Hansen, says they will be making a formal submission to the sports governing body regarding the appointment process. Despite a foray at fullback for the All Blacks, the Auckland Blues coach Leon McDonald expects Beauden Barrett will play at first 5 for his new franchise. Barrett moves to the Blues for the upcoming Super Rugby season, playing at the Wellington Hurricanes. The Blues will name their squad for the 2020 season in the coming days.
Definitely, when we were talking to him, it was all about playing 10, and from our point of view, nothing's really changed here.
The Auckland Blues coach Leon McDonald. The New Zealand 11 has beaten England by 8 wickets in a warm-up match at Lincoln ahead of the first T20 Cricket International this Friday. That's the news.
Critics say not to mourn the All Blacks.
We don't need to feel sorry for people who get well paid to do a good job and enjoy success sort of 90% of the time. I mean, they've crushed lots of dreams of other teams.
Union wants answers from Sky City on the fire.
If you're pregnant or asthmatic, don't come in. Well, is that the canary in the mine?
And Nolene Taurua takes aim at the umpires.
We are not a 60 penalty team, not at all. We got blown out in that first half, which changed the tempo of us.
Letting everyone have their say. Morning Report, weekdays from 6 on air and online.
Then on 9 to noon, an autism support organisation says some children are waiting half their lives to get a diagnosis, only to go on another waiting list for ongoing support. And after 10, Professor Angela Gallup on her life's work as a forensic scientist. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon, after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland to Manawatu, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and Central High Country. Cloudy periods and a few showers today, mainly fine with isolated showers in western regions tomorrow. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, a few showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms in Hawke's Bay today, fine tomorrow. Horowhenua to Wellington, also Wairarapa and Nelson, mainly fine, a chance of a shower this evening. Showers developing with a strong southerly change late tomorrow evening. For Marlborough, Canterbury and Otago, showers, some heavy with thunderstorms in Canterbury. Tomorrow, a strong cold southerly change with showers. Moves north, affecting Otago in the morning and early afternoon, Canterbury in the afternoon and Marlborough in the evening. For Bulla, Westland, Fiordland and Southland, occasional showers. Chatham Islands, cloudy periods with the odd shower from tonight. RNZ National, it's 5:08.
Thanks, Susanna. This is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. Counsellors say hundreds of young people have been left high and dry after starting free counselling programs through Mike King's Gumboot Fund. The money's all used up 5 months after its launch, with no forewarning given to counsellors and 6 months until the next major funding top-up. Some counsellors say they're now treating patients for free in a bid to avoid serious ramifications. Katie Todd reports.
Almost too good to be true. That's how counsellors describe the Gumboot Fund, launched through Mike King's I Am Hope charity in April this year, after a Facebook campaign and Gumboot Friday event. Anyone 19 years and younger could claim any number of counselling sessions without joining a waitlist or meeting specific criteria, and their counsellor would be paid from the $1.3 million fund. But in August, a 5-session limit was imposed per person. And last month, without any warning, Christchurch-based clinical psychologist Catherine Gallagher says all support abruptly ended as the charity hit the $0 mark.
We're dealing with some people with some quite significant concerns, and what looked like a path forward, was suddenly ripped away.
Even those in the middle of treatment programs are affected, which has resulted in some difficult conversations for Christchurch councillor Shireen Abdulal-Salim.
We had to call our clients and just say, look, I'm really sorry, but we've got this session available, and then after that the funding's been cut. So they had a choice of, for those who could afford it, which most couldn't, they could continue or we had to stop.
Online arts therapist Dione Davies, who also had to turn down clients seeking Gumboot funding, says it's hard to know where to send people for free support.
I do know that there are different services available in different areas. It really depends on where you are. But I also know that services through the hospitals and the DHBs have long waiting lists, so you're unlikely to be able to see someone quickly.
Worried about their clients' well-being, a number of counsellors have told RNZ they're continuing to provide treatment free of charge. Ms Abdulal-Salim says there's a real risk pulling the plug in the middle of treatment will make people's mental health worse.
Some of these people have just told you the worst possible things that have happened in their lives, and they might be partway through processing that with you, and then all of a sudden it stops and these clients are left with absolutely no professional support.
Mike King and the I Am Hope Charities chairperson Mike Dawes both declined to comment before the story went to air, but they confirmed the fund's next big top-up will be at the Gumboot Friday in 6 months' time. Mike Dawes told RNZ there's a whole lot that can be done to improve the fund next year, including more parameters on the spending. And that's exactly what Catherine Gallagher hopes.
Was even a time-limited model, even some kind of triage, all of those things just mean that clinician and child family can sit down and actually contract openly and clearly about what it is we're doing here, how long have we got, and what can we hope to accomplish in that period of time.
Councillors say the Gumboot Fund's problems should send a clear message to the government about demand for free mental health services. I Am Hope wants to raise $5 million on the next Gumboot Friday in April. $350,000 remains in I Am Hope's Spare Change Fund for people 20 to 25 years. In Christchurch, for Checkpoint, call Katie Todd, TNA.
And Mike King joins me now live in our Auckland studio. Mike, how worried are you for these kids?
Look, when we first started this out, we wanted to be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem. So many people are out there pointing out the problems. So we decided we were going to do something about it, and we wanted to raise $2 million in our first year to see what we could do. The funded agency straight away came out and called us irresponsible. They said we're raising people's expectations, there wouldn't be enough counsellors, and we're creating more problems. So what we did discover was, guess what? There are enough counsellors out there. The average wait was about a week.
So under your scheme?
Under our scheme, the average time was about a week. The average cost, so there were counsellors there. The counsellors were allowed to charge us what they would normally charge. So some of them were pretty close to $300. Others were around $80. So the average cost came out at about $120 per visit. 4 visits per client was the average. So with the government one, when you give someone 6 sessions, there's a whole lot of panic around 6. So what we said was have as many sessions as you want, and the average turned out to be 4. The people with the highest uptake were 8 to 11-year-olds. We had in the last month over 900 in the last month that were taking up the service.
Over 900 people in the last month?
Yeah, no, over 900 8 to 11-year-olds. So 8 to 11, which is...
And was that the biggest group that was taking up these counselling services?
Yes.
8 to 11?
8 to 11-year-olds. Now, if you talk to anyone who's an expert, they'll go, wow, that's a problem. I don't see it as a problem. Remember, none of these people were referred. This is a voluntary system. So what is it about 8 to 11-year-olds? And we had nearly 500 under 8-year-olds in the last month. What is it about this age group that feels that it's okay to go and ask for help? You see, and this is what we need to investigate.
So that's great that you had all those people come forward for counselling, but what happens now to the ones who are partway through? There's no money in the pot.
Well, there is money in the pot. So the way it's set up is each counsellor was allocated 5 sessions per client. Some of those sessions won't be used or haven't been used. So that money's going back into the pot. Is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. We did it all manually.
How much do you reckon will come back into the pot?
I'm hoping at least 300,000.
And how much did you start off with?
We started with 1.3 million.
Are you taken by surprise about the level of demand?
No, we've been funding free counselling for a number of years on the quiet, the Key Life Charitable Trust. People would come to us saying we need help, and we would just fund it. So no, there has always been a need. What I think is we're targeting the wrong areas. We are targeting crisis rather than prevention, which is getting into schools and getting our young kids talking about little problems before they become big problems, before they become suicidal thoughts.
Realistically, with the level of demand that you're seeing, even if you do get 300 grand in there, it's not going to be enough.
No, absolutely not. So remember, when we first started, the first 4 months is an average about 120,000. The last month, which really rocked us, $920,000 went out in the last month. And what we've heard on the grapevine was that doctors were finding a better response, a faster response in our service, and they were directing people to our fund. Now, we were meant to be a fund that gave the system a break. So most people took 14 weeks to get in. So what we were hoping to do was fund a couple of sessions before you get into funded services. But when health professionals ignore the funded service because our service is better, that's telling you a lot about the current system.
So, as you say, you were supposed to be a backstop, a break, but do you think you're actually taking on the primary provider's role here?
Well, I think there is room for someone to take on the primary provider's role.
But you don't have the funds for that. So what happens now? Are you looking to the Ministry of Health? Are you telling them, look, here's the statistics we've got?
So I've had meetings with the Minister. I've showed him the figures. I had a meeting with him 6 weeks ago. I got a very positive response.
Any commitment to give you more cash, though?
Governments don't commit, you know that. They can't commit, but I'm going to keep hassling them because that's what I do.
Do they need to? Is it their responsibility to put money into this particular service?
I think there is a need for this particular service. It's up for the government to say whether it's worthy or not. We know it's worthy. We've seen the numbers. For example, for funded services, the uptake, the gender uptake is 80% female, 20% male. We got 55% female, 45% male, 45%. And make no mistake, Māori youth are not the highest group taking their own lives. It's males. 73% of those who take their own lives are males. And we got a 45% uptake.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think this younger generation coming up are more empathetic, more caring. They're not like our generation. My generation is very selfish, very selfish. And I'll give you a classic example. When a kid comes home and talks about the anxiety they had today, most parents go, "Oh, what the hell's the matter with you? Gee, we didn't have it. Just forget about this. Here's what you need to do." So our kids are not hearing our parents saying, "Look, you just need some more resilience." What they're hearing is, "You're someone else I can't talk to." So they need other options. And what we're doing is providing that option.
So you provided one and now the money has run out. Did you anticipate that? Did you give councillors a heads up? Did you give the councillors a heads up?
Absolutely, we gave them the heads up. Yes, we did. We gave everyone the heads up. Everyone knew.
That the pot was running low.
Yes, the pot was on the website every day. But that last month, to be fair, took everyone by surprise. We're travelling along at 120 and then suddenly 900,000 worth of sessions are asked for.
So what should they do with those clients who are maybe partway through vital counselling services and they're worried about them?
Take care of them. Take care of them. If someone...
For free, you're saying?
Yeah. Take care of them. It's only for a short time. We'll come up with a better system. We'll get more money. But, it galls me that people are going, what about these people? Use your common sense. If you need to, if you're worried about someone's life and you're not going to see them because you're not going to get paid, I don't think the fund's the problem.
When are you going to get more money? The next Gumboot Day is April
3rd.
Isn't it? So
April
do you
3rd.
Anticipate getting a chunk of money before then, or are you going to have to wait 5 months?
We have to wait. I mean,
But some people can't wait. You know that yourself. Some people can't wait for money for counselling.
Well, they've been waiting for 10 years under the previous government, Are you not expecting this government, to get back to you before that Gumboot Day in April? I'm not. What I am going to say is, I'm going to keep on to the government. I am going to keep on to them. But honestly, governments don't make decisions. The Ministry of Health makes these decisions. The Ministry of Health are the ones.
So how's your relationship with them?
Well, it's terrible.
Elaborate. What do you mean?
Well, we've been trying to collaborate for years with these organisations, academics, clinicians, Ministry of Health. They're all working seamlessly together with their evaluated and evidence-based rubbish that doesn't work. And we've been saying, look, the people have a voice. So we asked New Zealand to send in, we needed 1,000 letters that are left by people who have taken their own lives and stories from people who have attempted to take their own lives to find commonality and themes. Mm-hmm. So we put this out. Straight away we got a letter from all the funded organisations out there demanding we stop, that we're terrorising people, that people are suicidal because we're getting people's letters. So then the Ministry of Health turned around and they gave us a cease and desist order. A cease and desist order that we stop collecting this data.
So, Mike, pause for a second. A legal letter telling you, stop that.
Stop. No, I don't know if it's legal, but it was a letter from the Ministry of Health and a letter from the Privacy Commissioner saying, I've got no legal right to, but I want you to cease and desist. And
are you stopping that?
Hell no. How no? This isn't North Korea. This isn't, they aren't Donald Trump. They can't tell people what to do. People voluntarily put these letters and gave them to us, hoping that we could come up with some themes and some commonalities to arm people with tools to understand why someone wishes to take their own life. Because right now, the overwhelming majority of people think that people want to take their lives because they're selfish, they're cowards, and they don't care.
Are you sure? Are you sure that they're not right about potentially putting people at risk by collecting those letters? Are you confident that they're not right about that?
I'm confident that some people will walk down the street and a dog will look at them funny and they'll think that that's a problem for their suicidal ideation. Look, life is full of problems. Every year the government puts out the stats, and in those stats they list how people take their lives, by gunshot, by hanging. It's all there in the details. Why? I'm certainly triggered by that, and I'm not suicidal. So stop pointing your finger. Stop pointing your finger and get on board. This is common themes. This is information. And I can tell you this. I've read probably more suicide notes than anyone except a coroner, and there are 3 common themes that come through. 1, I'm hurting and I want the pain to stop. Most people who are suicidal are either in psychological or physical pain and they want it to stop. 2, I'm causing hurt. This is by far the biggest one. I'm causing hurt. I feel like I'm a burden to everyone and everyone would be better off without me. And the 3rd theme that comes through, mainly in younger people with relationship breakups, older people with relationship breakups, I want to hurt you. You hurt me, now I want to hurt you. So what I'm seeing in the letters that I'm reading and what the themes that we want to look at and arm New Zealand with this information is really basic stuff. At the heart of all suicidal thinking, from what I've been reading and what I'm seeing and my own personal experiences, at the heart of all suicide are just people who are hurting. They're not cowards. They're not attention seekers. They're not drama queens. They are people who are hurting. And we as a nation need to do a better job. Here's
Mike, we're almost out of time. Can I ask you just very quickly, how many letters have you had so far? How many people?
I don't know. Well over. We have more letters than we have complaints.
Okay.
We have more letters than we have complaints, and there is no way we are stopping. We are going to get this information out. There is going to be no personal information in there. There is going to be no means. It's just themes.
Okay, appreciate you joining me. That is Mike King, who is a mental health campaigner. Let us know your thoughts on that. They're out of money for the moment. Should the government step in and fund this service? Whose responsibility is it? You're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. It is almost 25 after 5, and you can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. One of this country's longest-serving prisoners has told the Royal Commission investigating state and faith-based abuse that a boys' home in Lower Hutt was ruled by fear. The Royal Commission today began publicly hearing evidence for the first time from survivors, their advocates, lawyers and researchers. Among them was Arthur Taylor, who was released on parole earlier this year and was taken to a Puni boys' home in the 1960s when he was just 11. He told the inquiry a short time ago that staff at the home were violent and would punish children for no reason.
They had a massive leather strap that they used to really whip you with, you know. Now, I remember one night I was in the showers and I'd been whacked with this strap several times, you know, obviously for some transgression. And one of the other boys said, "Look at those big welts up your back, Arthur," you know. They're massive red welts, you know, from the strap. So they'd been belting the hell out of my back with this leather strap. And that was like a punishment there for whatever the heck I'd done, you know.
Did you witness physical abuse on other children?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. You know, the same sort of thing, this strapping and going on, and yeah. You know, you just didn't know what they could do to you. You know, that was one of the big things about it. You just didn't know what they could or could not do to you. And they led you to believe that they could do anything, that you were right in their power.
Arthur Taylor is one of almost 30 witnesses who will be giving evidence over the next 2 weeks at the hearing, which many have waited years for. Our reporter Katie Scotcher has been at the inquiry today and filed this report. Now, a warning, this story contains details that some listeners may find upsetting.
Keith Whiffen arrived at a Puni boys' home, a state-run institution which operated in Lower Hutt from the late 1950s, not long after his father's death. He said the abuse started in the van on the way to the home when another child smashed a guitar over his head. He told the inquiry its staff were also very violent and made it clear the children there were second-class citizens.
They were to be obeyed at all times, and to not obey them was to risk corporal punishment.
Mr Whiffen said he was later abused by the housemaster, Alan Moncrief Wright, who later pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting 3 victims, including Mr Whiffen, in 2011.
I remember the first time that he abused me. He found a pretext to send me to my room, and he came back and he sexually abused me. That was the first time of many.
He told the inquiry he wasn't the only person sexually assaulted at the home.
I will never actually forget being locked in a room in one of the wings and the boy in the next room being raped by a staff member. And me wondering when was going to be my turn.
Mr Whiffen left a Puni boys' home but was placed back in its care not long after. He told the inquiry he wasn't sexually abused during his second stint, but staff were just as violent as before.
Boys were being taken away, for example, at the weekends by staff members back to their own residence and being abused and coming back after the weekend.
Like many of the children who lived at the home, Mr Whiffen said he later got involved with the wrong crowd and soon had a criminal record.
I drifted from menial job to menial job, from boarding house to boarding house, abusing alcohol, linking up with other boys from a Puni boys' home, and getting into trouble, getting myself a criminal record. I got off to a very bad start.
Decades later, Mr Whiffen made a complaint to the Ministry of Social Development, but was told there was nothing to substantiate his claims. He told the inquiry nothing will change until there is a culture shift at the relevant government agencies. And Mr Whiffen said abuse cases should be handled outside of the courts.
There needs to be an independent claims process put in place that deals with the merits of the claims. It needs to be independent of the Ministry of Social Development, who represent the perpetrators. That's how we see them. We see them like that because that's what they are.
Judge Caroline Henwood spent years speaking to more than 1,000 victims of abuse as the chair of a confidential panel that assisted survivors. She also recommended an independent authority to deal with complaints.
You can't underestimate how serious some of these cases are. And if you want to bring a case on sexual abuse or rape or something, you've got to go through the whole police process. And it's very long, it's very draining, very complex and very difficult. So if you're a child in care, your options are look after yourself, basically.
The hearing in Auckland will resume tomorrow morning. I tamaki makouro mō te hōtaka o te ahiahi nei, ko Katie Scott Churahau.
And if this story or Mike King's interview has raised any issues for you, you can call Lifeline on 0800 543 354. That number again, 0800 543 354. Or you can free call or text 1737 anytime. That number, 1737 anytime, for support from a trained counsellor. And coming up on Checkpoint on RNZ National, thousands flee LA as wildfires threaten the famed Getty Centre Museum. The fate of a New Zealand nurse kidnapped by Islamic State is back in the spotlight. And what happened when a penguin entered an Oamaru bar? No, it's not the start of a joke. We'll tell you what happened. We would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program today, so do get in touch. You can text us 2101, tweet at Checkpoint RNZ, or you can email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Let's go now to the headlines with Susanna.
A witness has told the Royal Commission of Inquiry investigating abuse in care he would hear boys being raped and wonder if he would be next. Keith Whiffen, who was physically and sexually abused at the state-run Ipuni Boys' Home in Lower Hutt, told the inquiry he was not the only one. The Commission is hearing evidence from 28 witnesses over the next 2 weeks. A Marlborough court has heard a teacher convicted today of sexual misconduct shared with students explicit photos of herself on private social media platforms. The woman, who has name suppression, admitted in the Blenheim District Court 7 charges of having sexual relations with minors and 2 charges of sending sexual material to minors. A witness in the case told the court he thought he was in a relationship with the woman. A fight has broken out in the Whanganui District Court between the families of slain woman Jasmine Wilson and the man accused of her murder. The fight took place outside the courthouse after the 28-year-old murder accused appeared. Police say they were alerted to the altercation, but no one was injured or arrested. Mental health campaigner Mike King says the demand on his Gumboot fund took everyone by surprise, with counselling sessions using up to $900,000 in 1 month. It abruptly ran out of money in October, which counsellors say has left hundreds of young people in the lurch and their treatment programs on hold. Some counsellors say they're continuing treating clients for free before the next major funding top-up in 6 months. But Mike King told Checkpoint they should treat their clients for free until a better solution is found. The US House of Representatives will hold its first formal vote on the impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump later this week. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, says the resolution is necessary to ensure there is no cover-up by the Trump administration. Those are the latest news headlines from RNZ National. Our next news and weather update is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. If you're just tuning in, this is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen, and Nona Peltier is waiting in the studio to talk business. Now, Nona, I was very interested in this story given the announcements from Air New Zealand, a few days back. American Airlines, so it's going to be flying direct to Christchurch from Los Angeles, and apparently they made this decision yonks ago.
Yeah, well, 3 years ago they started flying from LA to Auckland. That was in 2016, and almost immediately they determined that this was a very successful route. it's one of the best in their network, and this is the world's biggest airline, so that says something. And I asked, well, in what way is it the best? It's the best in terms of passenger demand and profitability. So it was a no-brainer for them to look beyond that and decided that Christchurch would be a good location. They had been working with the airport there, the Christchurch Airport, and also tourism to see how they could partner. And they were waiting until they did a deal with Qantas. It's a joint venture deal that they've got with Qantas, and so they were waiting for that to take place, which happened a few months back. And here's the launch. And they're going to also be flying from Dallas to Auckland as well. And that's not going to be an everyday kind of service. Well, it will be eventually, but it's a seasonal service, and then it will run daily from December to March. So it's an October to March deal, and it starts October 2020.
That is really interesting. It's game on because obviously Air New Zealand flies to Houston. So, you know,
very much very close by.
Neck of the woods.
But it's very clever, to not choose routes that others are flying on. The Christchurch route's really quite unusual in a sense because they don't have any flights flying from the United States or the eastern part of the world to Christchurch. They have some from Asia and so on, Europe, but nothing that connects that way. So really big deal for Christchurch. Certainly Air New Zealand's share price took a bit of a knock today, down 1% on that news.
Interesting. Okay, so the government is, a different story, going to triple the size of the Financial Markets Authority's fighting fund to $6 million a year.
Yeah, so $6 million from $2 million. It's not now, $2 million since 2011 when they first got established.
It's scanty.
It is pretty scanty, and it showed on the FMA's record of litigation because, you can only take so many big cases, and some of the big offenders that they've probably had to tackle with, and we don't know all of who they were, they probably had to do a lot of deals or just let things slip with an apology because what could they do? It's a big, expensive situation to take on these big companies, take them to court for breaches of market regulation. So now with $6 million, now that's only if they spend it. They can spend up to $6 million a year, and if they don't spend it, they'll have to give it back. Just saying.
Really, use it or lose it.
It's the way it goes.
Hey, so you mentioned Air New Zealand there. What else was happening on the markets today?
Well, our market was, it rose only a handful of points today, up 5 points to 10,794. That's pretty cool because overall we were closed yesterday, so the markets played a bit of a catch-up in the sense S&P 500 out of the U.S., record highs. The Nikkei today, record highs. And that's because the market's still hoping for a trade deal with China and the United States. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we are trading at 63.7 U.S. cents, 93 cents Australian, and 49.5 pence, which is pretty much where we were last week.
Thanks, Nona. Nona Pelsier with Business there. A former Marlborough teacher has admitted a list of sexual misconduct charges with school students. The offending was serious enough for a judge to impose the first strike under 3 strikes law when he convicted the 37-year-old after she pleaded guilty in the Blenheim District Court today. The woman, whose name is suppressed to protect the victims, admitted 7 charges of sexual relations with minors and 2 charges of sending sexual material to minors. Our Nelson Marlborough reporter Tracy Neal was in court today in Blenheim. And just a warning, some of the material is graphic. I asked her what we found out today about the woman's offending, and here she is.
Well, because of today's guilty plea, we've only heard the police summary, which was a fairly lurid account of the woman's offending, the impact on the victims, but not really any of the background on this woman and her life. It began a couple of years ago as a text relationship with one student who was under 16 at the time. Now, this boy spent his lunchtimes with the woman. They then built up what was described in court today as a relationship of trust. That's the police prosecutor's description, the summary of a facts description. The woman then invited the student for a drive in her car. She became emotional and started talking about her mental health problems and that she needed someone to talk to. So it went from there to a relationship of a sexual nature. So she performed oral sex on him, asked if he'd had sex before, but he avoided the question, saying he had to get back to town. Now, at this point, she told him not to say anything. So they met on several more occasions over the next year, and the boy believed they were in a relationship. And from there, it it moved on to her taking explicit photographs of herself. She'd send them to the boy through social media platforms, Snapchat, or video call the boy through FaceTime. Near the end of last year, the boy invited another boy to a group chat online with the woman. They talked about sexual matters, which from that point on sparked a series of illicit rendezvous with these students.
So how would you describe the woman in court today?
She moved between appearing deeply ashamed to having very little expression at all, really, but there was certainly nothing extreme in her reactions, although it was clearly difficult at times for her to hear out loud the details of the charges against her.
And what happens next?
Well, Judge David Ruth convicted the woman, and she's been remanded on bail for sentencing in December. So her lawyer, Jonathan Eaton QC, says the woman's mental health needs to be assessed before sentencing. So Judge Ruth said the woman is now also subject to the 3-strike law given the seriousness of the offending. But he's also allowed the option of restorative justice to be explored, so that remains to be seen.
Our reporter Tracy Neal there. Thousands of people have been evacuated from some of Los Angeles' wealthiest neighbourhoods after a fast-moving brush fire ignited near the famous Getty Museum. It's the latest outbreak in a wildfire season that has scorched parts of California, triggering mass evacuations and power outages across the US state. Lisa Bernhard reports.
California's fast-moving flames came dangerously close to the Getty Center Monday, a world-class art museum high above the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti said this latest brush fire broke out in the early morning hours and that no cause is known.
This is a fire that quickly spread. It is now over 500 acres. We have over 500 firefighters that are on the line right now in some of the most challenging topography of Los Angeles.
Thousands of residents fled, including LA Lakers star LeBron James, who tweeted, "Man, these LA fires are no joke. Had to emergency evacuate my house, and I've been driving around with my family trying to get rooms." James urged others to get to safety. Officials at the Getty said the fire was burning to the north of the building, which was designed with thick stone walls to prevent fire from damaging its treasures. It's the latest outbreak in nearly a week of wildfires that have scorched parts of the state. The Kincaid fire in the north has ravaged California's wine country, including this historic Soda Rock winery.
The fire has grown to 66,000 acres and is still 5% contained. The fire is still threatening just under 80,000 homes, predominantly in Sonoma County.
Governor Gavin Newsom declared a statewide emergency Sunday as high winds and low humidity continue to fan the flames. More than 1 million homes and businesses were without power Monday morning, most from planned outages by utility company Pacific Gas and Electric to prevent further damage. Newsom has called this excessive and criticized the company for mismanagement. The bankrupt utility is on the hook for billions of dollars from deadly wildfires sparked by its equipment in 2017 and 2018. The cause of the Kincaid fire is not known, but it ignited near a broken wire on a PG&E transmission tower.
And that was Lisa Bernhard reporting. And a short time ago, I spoke to CNN's Connor Powell, who is in Southern California.
We got a statement just a short while ago from the Getty Art Museum saying they're not moving any of the artwork out of the building, that the building was designed to deal with fires, designed to deal with earthquakes and any other type of sort of natural disasters. They say the building is structurally sound. They have the protections in place for all of the artwork. So right now, nothing's moving out of the museum. And also, the fire has moved further away from that area. That area has been pretty much burnt up. So it looks like, at least for now, the museum is in good shape.
What's the situation with evacuations? Because it has to be said, this is kind of hovering near some of your very posh suburbs in LA. So are people being told to get out of their homes?
Yeah, this is a very nice part of LA, the Brentwood area. This is an area where Arnold Schwarzenegger and LeBron James, the NBA basketball player, they all live in this area. They've all been forced to leave their house their houses here in the last couple hours. They all got phone calls or knocks on doors or text messages about 2 a.m. this morning, local time, and we're told it's time to get out. About 10,000 or so people right now have been forced out of their homes for tonight. Some of them celebrities, some of them just normal people. But this is an area that is pretty densely populated. A lot of houses sort of close to each other, right on top of each other. And so a lot of houses in a very small area are impacted by this fire.
So how well is it being handled? I see there's been a bit of criticism of some of the power utility companies there because power has been proactively turned off in some areas. What's the feel for how well this is being contained and handled?
Well, across the entire state, the state is dealing with power cuts. And they're dealing with power cuts because this time of year we get these warm winds, the Santa Ana winds that bring in warm, dry winds that really, with the dry temperatures and the dry ground here, this is fire season here in Los Angeles. And the power companies across the state have been cutting power when the winds have picked up because they don't want to spark any fires. And so Governor Newsom and others have criticized the power companies here because of that. Right now, because of the Getty fire, only about 1,000 people are without power here in Los Angeles, which is a pretty low number. But because of the high winds and the potential for the sparking of fires over the next couple of days because of the conditions, the power companies have said here up to 600,000 people could lose power just because they'll have the power turned off, not because of the fires, but because they don't want to spark any fires going forward over the next couple of days. So there's a lot of criticism right now of the power companies and the need to do more to, have a better infrastructure here.
So this is not normal fire season, though, is it, even?
Well, end of summer, it's very much dry season here. They start to get rain sometimes around here, but we've had a very dry second half of the summer and very dry fall. So, yeah, I mean, you get fires here this time of year. This is the last year when we had some of the big fires in some of the same areas as well. Northern California, it seems like, is sort of always dealing with fires almost year-round these days. But certainly in Southern California, this is a time where people are very cautious. It's the end of summer here, beginning of the fall, but we haven't had any of the rain that really doesn't come until November, December, January period here.
I recall previously your president, Donald Trump, has been quite vocal when it comes to these kinds of fires. Has he been saying much about this?
He said very little, and it's not clear why. It's not clear if he's trying to help the situation by saying nothing or if he just has moved on to other issues. The federal emergency management system has granted Southern California some federal relief, so the government is helping here. The federal government is helping here as they're supposed to. But, yeah, so far the president, in comparison to past fires, has stayed pretty quiet.
And that was Connor Powell reporting from Southern California. While the death of the Islamic State group leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has made headlines around the world, it's also prompted fresh questions closer to home. The United States is now looking to release photos and video of the raid that led to his death. Al-Baghdadi killed himself by detonating an explosive vest during a US Special Forces operation in northern Syria at the weekend. And that has once again raised the question, what has happened to the New Zealand nurse Louisa Akavi, who was kidnapped at gunpoint in Syria more than 5 years ago? The New Zealand government and allies on the ground in Syria and Iraq have been trying to find her ever since. It was believed she was held hostage by IS for most of that time. Our political editor Jane Patterson joins us now from Parliament. Jane, Louisa's story hit the headlines back in April again. Remind us of what intel the government had at that point when we heard about her again after so much time.
So back in April, the International Committee of the Red Cross, who was technically Miss Akavi's employer, went public against the wishes of the New Zealand government, I might say, because for years they had kept this story under wraps with the cooperation of media companies because they didn't want to put her life at risk. But at that point, we were able to report what had been known or thought to have happened to her or where she'd been seen. And there were a couple of sightings that had kept optimism pretty high, and one was in late 2017 at an internally displaced persons camp, and then another one at the end of 2018 that she was seen around the Syrian and Iraq border. So all of that gave people hope that she was still alive. Of course, in the interim, there was the fall of Baghouz. There was a hope then too that she would either be found with fleeing people or otherwise. That didn't happen. Now, a senior government source has said today that they have not given up hope that she's still alive, but basically with a complete absence of new information or any positive sightings in recent months, that hope is now dwindling.
And so why in particular has the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi brought her name up again?
So one possible theory was that Miss Akavi was being kept close to al-Baghdadi because of her nursing background, and his death raised hopes that she might be found near him or in the vicinity. Again, the government source says so far there's no evidence that she was with him or anywhere near to him, but the government here is still asking questions of the US about any information that might be relevant to her. Now, as various events in Syria have unfolded, and the first one, or one of them being the fall of Baghouz, it's basically narrowed the options of what could have happened to her. There are still thousands of people in these camps. There is a very slight possibility that she could still be there, but that's really not something that seems to be under active consideration. And another dynamic that's making the situation very difficult is now aid agencies like the Red Cross cannot operate in Syria because of since the Turkish incursion, and of course they were eyes on the ground and were able to keep an eye out for her, and that is just not a situation that's possible at the moment.
Thanks for the update. That's Jane Patterson there joining us from Parliament. It is, it's about 10 to 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. We love hearing from you, so get in touch about anything you've heard on the program today. Text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or you can flick us an email, checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Tears have been shed, hymns sung and hopes for the future expressed at the second day of the Te Pūtake o Te Rere, the second day of Te Pūtake o Te Rere, the New Zealand Wars commemorations in Taranaki. Activity started earlier with the dawn service and the lighting of a ceremonial fire at Tokohia Pā on the outskirts of Waitara. Robin Martin was there.
Between 200 and 300, together where the first shot of the rain, together where the first shots of the New Zealand Wars were fired, Te Aotearoa Rangatira, Wiramu Kingi Te Rangataki and his military chief Haporona had deliberately provoked the British into firing onto Te Koea Pā, which had been hastily built on disputed land. Te Pūtake o Te Rere co-organiser Ruakeri Hond says although little remains of the L-shaped fighting pā, it has never been forgotten.
We have continued to meet here about, I think it was on the 150th anniversary. We reinitiated the 17th of March to hold an event, and so we come here on the morning of the 17th and acknowledge Hapurona, acknowledge the people who stood alongside him, and the plans that were used by Tupuna to stand their ground.
The ceremony at Te Koea involved karakia, waiata, haka, and the burning of rākau or sticks representing the iwi present. It was enough to bring tears to the eyes of Pākehā couple Margaret and Ken Crawford, who live on nearby Waitara Road.
We have found part of a cannonball on our land, and we know people in Pennington Road who also had cannonball there. When we shifted here in 2002, we were aware for the first time that we are only custodians of the land, that we don't own the land, and that was what was particularly special to us, and that is why we are here this morning.
82-year-old Waitara Kāmatua Raymond Tito had his own memories of Te Koea.
And we used to play here every day. We got a grounding every day, but we still came over here and played. And of course I went away. You know, you go away for work and what have you, but we always used to come back here. When we come back here, we used to come here and do what we used to do, karakia, and it was the same.
The British troops who fell in battle were also remembered in a service at the Waitara Military Cemetery. Hoani Erawata explains why it was important to recognise the 34 soldiers who lost their lives at Puketakaori and Māori-led in 1860.
You need to also pay homage to the enemy, I guess the other side. It's just honouring them and remembering them, but it's also to do with acknowledging that happened and that life always continues on, but without holding any bitterness.
Buses ferried Te Pūtaki o Te Riri participants to notable battle sites this afternoon, including Pukerangi Ora, where the First Taranaki War ground to a stalemate in 1861. Under Major General T.S. Pratt, the British had laboriously dug their way up the slopes towards a new pa at Pukerangi Ora, using a system of redoubts and covered trenches called saps. As Pukerangi Ora Hapu member Anuru White, who was one of the guides, explains.
So pretty much sapping was an attack technique. So because of all the trenches and the warfare that iwi were using, that hapu were using, I suppose the strategy that Crown used was the sapping, and it took them a long time to do. You can see this is here, when I talk to Calvin Day and a lot of other historians around, they still think this is one of the better examples of sapping today.
Mr. White says Te Pūtaki o Te Riri presented the hapu with a great opportunity to tell its stories and think about how it might do so in the future.
In terms of, are we going to recreate anything? We're going to look at some of the palisading, etc. And ultimately, how do we share these stories and how these stories can be told on site? So when people come here, they don't just see a sign saying Pukerangi Ora Historic Reserve. They know that actually something did happen here, and people know when they come here, they can feel it. And that's important, that why they're feeling like that is to have those stories on site.
And if anyone doubts that Te Pūtaki o Te Riri is having the desired effect, take it from 14-year-old Noah Tamarina O'Brien. It's hitting the mark. A student at Te Kopoku High School in Hamilton, he shared his opinion over Kai.
Finding it's a cool experience, a new first-up experience for me. And just bought it from my uncle. Wanted to try and pass it on and look out for the future and hopefully carry it on. Learn new things, why we do this and what happened back then and why we do all such stuff and all that. It's a cool event to be a part of.
Te Pūtaki o Te Riri wraps up at Owai Marae in Waitara tomorrow. Mo te hōtaka o te ahi ponei, ko Robin Martin Hahu.
Well, now to a story about a penguin and a pub. The owner of the Criterion Hotel on Harbour Street in Oamaru was left stunned when some tourists handed her a little penguin chick over the weekend, after she told them that touching the bird was illegal. The blue penguin colony rescued the bird and released it back into the ocean, but its science and environmental manager, Dr. Philippa Agnew, says she's concerned that this kind of behaviour is on the rise. She spoke to our South Island multimedia reporter, Logan Church.
On Saturday afternoon, we had a call from a local business owner. She owns a hotel in the historic precinct in Oamaru, and she had seen some people picking up a penguin in the street. And that happens occasionally because the penguins sort of nest in amongst buildings and things where you don't really expect. And this particular penguin, it was a fledgling, so that means it's just about ready to go to sea. It was underneath a drain on the roadside. So these people have picked up lifted the drain and picked up the penguin. And so the pub owner has kindly informed them that it's actually not acceptable to do that, and it's not under the Wildlife Act. It's prohibited to disturb protected species. And I guess these people didn't know that, but the lady that owns the pub did, and so she told them that, hang on a second, you can't actually go and pick up penguins in the street. So she told them, and they didn't know what to do, and I guess got a bit scared and handed her the penguin, and then so she contacted us, thankfully, because she knew what to do, and she knew that what they were doing wasn't right. So, yeah.
And what happened after that?
So we checked it over here, And it's a fledgling that was really, really close to leaving the nest anyway, so that might be why it was in an unusual place, because it had left its nest, maybe was heading to the ocean and got a little bit sidetracked on the way. So it had some of its little downy feathers that they gradually lose as they grow and they develop their blue feathers. So it had a few down feathers left around its head. So we kept it for a couple of days because just to make sure it was actually ready to go. So we fed it, because we have a rehabilitation facility here for these sorts of potential cases. So we fed it for a couple of days and then popped it into our swimming pool to make sure it was nice and waterproof and ready for life at sea. And it was, of course, so we released it.
And that's Dr. Philippa Agnew of the Blue Penguin Colony speaking to our reporter Logan Church. If you want to see the cute picture of that penguin, go onto our Facebook page and we'll put that up online as well. Time for a bit of your feedback before the news. This person says Mike King was superb. His organisation is far better than the Ministry of Health. Government must fund them, says Russell from Hamilton. This is about funding for counselling for mental health well-being. Well-intentioned but misguided with some of his campaigns and expectations, says Lyndon. Criticising counsellors for not being able to see clients for free is disappointing. Another one says 100% behind Mark King.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui, ko Susana Leata DNA. One of this country's longest-serving prisoners has told the Royal Commission investigating state and faith-based abuse that a boys' home in Lower Hutt was ruled by fear. The inquiry today began publicly hearing evidence for the first time from survivors, their advocates, lawyers and researchers. Among them was Arthur Taylor, who was released on parole earlier this year and was taken to Ipuni Boys' Home in the 1960s when he was 11. He says staff were violent and would punish children for no reason.
They had a massive leather strap that they used to really whip you with, you know. Now, I remember one night I was in the showers and I'd been whacked with this strap several times, you know, obviously for some transgression. And one of the other boys said, "Look at those big welts up your back, Arthur," you know. They were massive red welts, you know, from the strap. So they'd been belting the hell out of my back with this leather strap.
Arthur Taylor is one of 28 witnesses who will give evidence over the next 2 weeks. Mental health campaigner Mike King says the demand on his Gumboot fund took everyone by surprise, with counselling sessions using up $900,000 in 1 month. The fund abruptly ran out of money in October, which counsellors say left hundreds of young people in the lurch with their treatment on hold. Some counsellors say they're worried about their clients suffering serious effects before the next major funding top-up in 6 months. But Mr King told Checkpoint the Gumboot Fund was designed to be another option rather than the primary provider, and they should treat their clients for free until a better solution is found.
Take care of them. You know, it's only for a short time. We'll come up with a better system. We'll get more money. But, you know, it galls me that people are going, what about these people? Use your common sense. If you need to, if you're worried about someone's life and you're not going to see them because you're not going to get paid, I don't think the fund's the problem.
Mental health campaigner Mike King. A fight has broken out at the Whanganui District Court between the families of slain woman Jasmine Wilson and the man accused of her murder. The fight took place outside the courthouse after the 28-year-old murder accused appeared. Police say they were alerted to the altercation, but no one was injured or arrested. The man has been in custody since late August on charges of assaulting and injuring Ms Wilson, but police have only recently charged him with murder. He also faces new charges of assault and threatening to cause Ms Wilson grievous bodily harm. Police also charged him with assaulting 3 other people. He was granted interim name suppression and will appear in the High Court at Whanganui next month. Climate change protesters have clashed with police in violent scenes outside a mining conference in Melbourne. The police have arrested more than 40 demonstrators outside the Melbourne Exhibition and Convention Centre, where the International Mining and Resources Conference is being held. 2 people were arrested for assaulting a police horse. Here's the ABC's Elias Klur.
Climate action protesters gathered outside the International Mining and Resource Conference, crying chants of shame and blood on your hands. The crowd attempted to blockade people from entering the Melbourne Exhibition Centre, causing chaotic scenes. Scuffles between protesters and police resulted in 2 people being taken to hospital. 20 people were arrested and 2 people were charged for allegedly assaulting a police horse. The crowds are now dispersing, but many of them have vowed to return tomorrow for the second day of the conference.
Elias Clure at the scene. 3 of Destiny Church's charities have had their status reinstated after being deregistered 2 years ago. The High Court in Wellington today ordered for the 3 charities to be re-registered and have their status backdated. The filing of late returns had them deregistered in 2017. The lawyer representing the charities, Ron Mansfield, says they are pleased with the outcome.
All the 3 charities wanted was to be re-registered and to have continuous registration, which is what has been achieved. So as far as the 3 charities are concerned, they're wrapped with the outcome because there's no interruption in the work that they're doing.
Mr Mansfield says the charities have endeavoured to comply with the requirements and will continue to do so. The Prime Minister will travel to Thailand this weekend for the annual East Asia Summit. Jacinda Ardern says meetings will discuss strategic and security issues, including maritime security, nuclear proliferation, terrorism and violent extremism. She will arrive in Bangkok on Sunday and leave the following day. Winston Peters will be acting Prime Minister while she's away. A biologist looking after a seal who may have been shot in the face at the weekend says the injury could change the sea creature's behaviour forever. Resident leopard seal Orpha, well known around Auckland's Waitemata Harbour, was spotted bleeding from the head on Saturday. The 3-metre mammal is recovering well, but 3 separate vets have confirmed the bleeding is likely the result of a gunshot wound. Orpha has never attacked anyone, but maritime or marine biologist Brittany Mathias says that might change.
It's absolutely heartbreaking because Orpha is not aggressive, and I guess one of our concerns is if it was done by a human, that she may end up starting to be more aggressive towards people because she becomes frightened of them.
Ms Mathias says anyone who sees Orpha is encouraged to stay at least 20 metres away and call the toll-free hotline 0800 Leopard. Kieran Foran, let's do a time check. It's just past 6:05. Kieran Foran will make his first international appearance in more than 2 years when the New Zealand Kiwis meet Great Britain in the first league test at Eden Park on Saturday. Foran is replacing Sean Johnson and will partner captain Benji Marshall in the halves. In other changes to the side, which lost to Australia last week, coach Michael Maguire has moved Zane Tetivano to the starting front row, and Joseph Tapine is in the loose forwards. The Auckland Blues coach Leon McDonald says he is focused on bringing a Super Rugby title back to the city, not on coaching the All Blacks. Sonny Bill Williams hopes to see a person of Māori or Pacific Island heritage included in the All Blacks coaching set-up after the Rugby World Cup. Despite his Māori heritage, McDonald says he is not yet interested in the national coaching job.
Got a job to do here. I just started with the Blues and really excited about the challenge of trying to win a title here in Auckland. It hasn't been done since 2003. He's still pretty young as a coach, so just one job at a time at the moment, and this one's the one I'm excited about.
The upcoming Super Rugby season will be McDonald's second in charge of the Blues. The New Zealand 11 has beaten England by 8 wickets in a warm-up match in Lincoln ahead of the first T20 Cricket International this Friday. And in the domestic competition, Wellington batsman Devon Conway has blazed a double century on the first day of the Plunket Shield match against Canterbury. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, there's a window on the world of Italy's only black senator, Tony Iwobi. Eric Brenstrom has the latest on the world's weather, including strange going-ons in the stratosphere above Antarctica. Is that why we're getting so much wind in New Zealand this spring? And Chris Teo-Sherrill on why they are organising a petition to ban e-scooters from the footpath. Join me, Brian Crump, tonight after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland to Manawatu, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and Central High Country. Cloudy periods and a few showers tonight, mainly fine with isolated showers in western regions tomorrow. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, a few showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms in Hawke's Bay tonight, fine tomorrow. Horowhenua to Wellington, also Wairarapa and Nelson, mainly fine. A chance of a shower this evening, showers developing with a strong southerly change late tomorrow evening. For Marlborough, Canterbury and Otago, showers, some heavy with thunderstorms in Canterbury. Tomorrow, a strong cold southerly change with showers. It moves north, affecting Otago in the morning and early afternoon, Canterbury by the afternoon and Marlborough by the evening. For Buller, Westland, Fiordland and Southland, occasional showers. Chatham Islands, cloudy periods with the odd shower from tonight. RNZ National, it's 6:08.
Thanks, Susanna, and thanks for joining us. This is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. As Auckland's central city gets back to normal after last week's fire chaos, WorkSafe says it still hasn't signed off Sky City's working conditions. Billowing smoke from the fire at Sky City's International Convention Centre forced road and business closures and delayed 1,000 court cases at the District Court. And while the blaze is under control, investigations into the cause and concerns about air quality are ongoing. Jessie Chang reports.
Things are slowly getting back to normal in the central Auckland city after last week's fire. But fire and emergency are still on site.
So what we've been doing today is looking at any potential for any hotspots, and we've been doing that by walking around the building, having a look at the potential hotspots, using the thermal imaging camera and making sure items are safe.
That's Senior Station Officer Gary Lane. He says there haven't been any flare-ups today and normally firefighters wouldn't stay at a building this long checking for hotspots.
But this is a unique situation and we need to cover all our bases.
Gary Lane also hopes all the water in the basement car park will be emptied by tomorrow. Over 8 million litres of water used to fight the blaze in the convention centre ended up submerging some 100 cars in the basement. Mr Lane says that liquid is slowly being pumped out to the wastewater treatment.
The water is about 200 millimetres high. The basement is being pumped out, but the contamination of the water we have to watch. And once that water goes, then they'll be able to retrieve the cars.
Sky City started opening its precinct last Thursday after saying it was safe for workers to return. It told RNZ independent consultant Miller Hygiene Consultancy confirmed the air quality in its precinct was very good and WorkSafe had been through its building. Their statement has been voiced.
WorkSafe has also visited Sky City Auckland and has undertaken observations and is satisfied that Sky City has taken appropriate actions to manage any potential health-related risks.
But WorkSafe says while an occupational hygienist went to a short briefing on Sky City's plans to restart work, that doesn't amount to any form of sign-off or approval. It says under the Health and Safety at Work Act, it is Sky City's responsibility to ensure it is providing a safe workplace. RNZ has asked Sky City for detailed information about the air quality in its precinct, but is yet to receive any report. As for Central City roads, Auckland Transport says the left lanes of both Hobson and Nelson streets are now open, but Wellesley Street between Hobson and Nelson is only open for buses. In a video posted to social media, Auckland Transport had this message for Central City workers.
There will be still significant delays for those who are driving. Taking public transport, carpooling, walking or cycling will help reduce congestion in the city centre.
The fire has had significant implications for the nearby Auckland District Court. It only reopened today and the Ministry of Justice says about 1,000 cases were either adjourned or not heard at all. The court is adding extra hearing days in the coming weeks to try and clear the backlog. And the investigation into what caused the blaze is ongoing. Fire and Emergencies says 10 different organisations, including the police, insurers and other government agencies, are looking into it. They are examining the roof area and baskets suspended by cranes, but Fire and Emergency says significant roof damage has hindered efforts to access it. It isn't known how long the investigation will take. I tamaki makoto mō te hōtaka o te ahi nei, ko Jessie Chang tēnei.
The man who said he would deliver Brexit by the end of this month, do or die, has suffered a day of blows at Westminster. Boris Johnson failed to gain the 2/3 majority in Parliament he needed to hold on to an early election on December the 12th. And yet further delay is looming after the EU agreed to extend the Brexit deadline by 3 months until January 31st in a bid to avert a chaotic UK departure. The BBC's Laura Koonsberg filed this report.
Throw your hands up if you like.
A very short and efficient and constructive meeting, and I am happy that decision has been taken.
Short and efficient? Not how anyone could describe the Brexit process.
Is this extension too long?
Full of missteps and stumbles.
Be careful, be careful. Take care.
But the meeting in Brussels to give the UK another 3-month delay was exactly that. But despite Boris Johnson's rush, he's broken his Brexit deadline and his promise to leave by Halloween. Instead, this afternoon, trying to push MPs to the ballot box.
There is a widespread view that this Parliament has run its course. And that is because I simply do not believe that this House is capable of delivering on the priorities of the people, whether that means Brexit or anything else.
Technically, this session's only been going a couple of weeks, but the current cast have been in place since 2017. There's nothing comfortable about this for Labour, but they won't agree a contest yet.
He will avoid his responsibilities, break his promises to dodge scrutiny. And today he wants an election and his bill. Well, not with our endorsement.
There's a message to the people of Scotland.
The SNP and the Lib Dems, though, weren't ready to back the Prime Minister tonight. But tomorrow, when he'll need only to win by 1, might be a different story.
We will not vote with the government tonight, but make no mistake, the Scottish National Party are ready to give people back their say.
The way forward now is to have an election, but to do so responsibly, not letting the Prime Minister force through his bad Brexit deal.
Division! Clear the lobby.
Ultimately, the Prime Minister was miles off what he needed.
The ayes to the right, 299. The noes to the left, 70.
But just when one vote is gone, along comes another round here. Number 10 will ask MPs again tomorrow to back an election on December the 12th. But they'll vow this time to ditch any effort to get their Brexit deal through Parliament. With that gone, the opposition parties may be more enthusiastic, but suspicions of Boris Johnson's motives are all around tonight.
Laura Koonsberg reporting. The head of the Māori-led inquiry into Oranga Tamariki says it's made huge progress with whānau Māori after they lost trust in the department's internal review. One whānau is refusing to engage with the Oranga Tamariki review after social workers tried to remove a 6-day-old baby from a mother in hospital. But the Māori-led inquiry says whānau have been turning up in droves to share their stories, saying it's a process they can trust. Mani Dunlop reports.
In July, hundreds delivered a 17,000 signed petition to Parliament demanding the end to the removal of babies from their whānau to be placed into state care. The outrage was prompted by footage of social workers trying to uplift a 6-day-old moko from whānau in a Hawke's Bay hospital. The whānau is refusing to participate in the ministry's review of the case, and a key claimant in the Waitangi Tribunal case, and a former child of the state himself, Rawiri Waritini Karina, says he can understand.
If you look at what they experienced, and it was shocking. And so it's the people who have subject them to that type of abuse, and now they want to do a review, I'd be quite sceptical myself.
While the ministry conducts its own review, 3 other reviews are underway by the Ombudsman, the Children's Commissioner and a Māori-led inquiry by the Whānau Order Commissioning Agency. The chair of the agency, Miripika Raukawa-Tate, says it's had hundreds of submitters, including the whānau who will not engage with the ministry. She says they have gone where asked and says hundreds have come to them with their stories.
Whether that was to a kohanga reo, whether it was to a whānau meeting, whether it was to another meeting that was called by our providers, our whānau order providers in their areas. So it has been very busy, but it has gone extremely well. We've had so many people come to talk with us and just to tell us their stories, and we were not surprised that they have been coming forward in droves.
Dr. Waritini Karina says it's no surprise that whānau Māori are cooperating freely with kaupapa Māori processes.
It's about the safety of themselves and their whānau, because what they've actually found is that with the tactics that Oranga Tamariki used, they weren't safe, regardless of what the plans were put in. And so really they're involved in the other inquiry, but because that's on their terms.
Miripikero Kawatate says the various inquiries are vital for filling in the gaps around the Ministry's review, and whānau Ora is communicating directly with the Ombudsman and the Children's Commissioner.
Because there are things that they can't do, and there are families that they will never reach. And so what they're saying is any information that we can share with you to support you in your work and the good outcomes that we know will come from your report, they're more than happy to do that. So we're very grateful for that. And anything that we're doing now, even if we're sort of seeing some things coming through, we're also giving them a heads up of where we are at with our inquiry so far.
Late last week, the Waitangi Tribunal announced it will also hold an urgent inquiry scrutinising whether the Crown's current laws and policies on uplifts of tamariki are consistent with the Treaty of Waitangi. Kiri Nuku is the head of the nurses' organisation and is part of a group of claimants that took a case to the tribunal earlier this year. She says current policies cause harm and need to change.
So I think what I'd like to see is the better policies being applied, that there is more cultural consideration, and that we don't continue to have this irreparable harm created because of the current policies that we have operating.
The Waitangi Tribunal's urgent hearing is expected to take place next year. Oranga Tamariki and the Minister for Children say they will not comment while the review is underway. For Checkpoint, Kormani Dunlop, DNA.
It's 19 minutes after 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Scientists say they've found the birthplace of modern humans and it might mean rewriting the history books. Previously, fossil evidence pointed to East Africa as the likely birthplace around 200,000 years ago. But new research published in the prestigious journal Nature concludes that the location was in southern Africa. Here's the ABC's Michael Slezak.
Known for their rare click language, the Khoisan people in northern Botswana are now helping to answer one of the most hotly contested questions of modern science. Where did modern humans come from?
Understanding someone's ancestry is probably a given that most people want to understand where they come from.
Professor Vanessa Hayes from the Garvan Institute of Medical Research is part of an international team that's undertaken a landmark study, possibly rewriting tens of thousands of years of human history.
So what we found in this study is what we call the homeland. So the homeland of anatomically modern humans. And that was south of the Zambezi River, in what is today largely the northern part of Botswana, going into Namibia on the west and Zimbabwe on the east.
The key to this discovery lay in the study of the maternal DNA of more than 1,000 people across southern Africa.
Our timelines and our history was built on the DNA data, but we overlaid that with linguistics, culture, population, geography and diversity and history. But more importantly, we also worked with geologists and a climate physicist. We have no idea as genomicists what the region looked like 200,000 years ago when modern humans came about. So we went and looked at what was the geography like in the region and what was the climate like.
Not only were our earliest ancestors from southern Africa, but researchers believe that they remained in that one place for far longer than first thought.
This founder population remained in the homeland for 70,000 years. And we tried to understand why. And what the climate data showed us is during this period, the whole of southern Africa was in a mega drought. It was a very unfavourable region to live. Yet, the founder population was living in a wetland, like an oasis in a desert. This wetland would have been the size of today New Zealand.
The research has been published today in the journal Nature. Archaeologist Fran Dorey from the Australian Museum says the findings are exciting.
This is the first time that a genetic study has provided probably a bit more of a pinpoint evidence, and it's suggesting that we actually first evolved in South Africa and then spread up through the rest of Africa and then throughout the world.
But this research isn't just about providing an insight into our past. Professor Vanessa Hayes says there's a lot to be gleaned about the future of humans too.
As a medical researcher, where I base my research on genomics, so understanding how the DNA influences our health, to understand being healthy and how disease and health are linked. We really need to understand who we are and where we come from, because our past dictates our future.
Professor Vanessa Hayes ending that report. People living on Papua New Guinea's Rai coast say a toxic spill from the Ramu nickel mine has killed marine life, destroyed livelihoods and endangered their health. They also say the mining company has done nothing for the community apart from pollute it. Ben Robinson-Drawbridge has more.
200,000 litres of toxic slurry was spilled into the ocean from the mine's refinery in August, prompting an investigation and the refinery's temporary closure by the government. It was reopened last week after remedial work was completed, but fishing is still banned in the area, as Rai Coast resident Amelie Dede explained.
The colour of the salt water was turned to red. Now they stopped all the catches. The provincial government, they stopped the local people to get the fish because most of the fish were contaminated and the people are very afraid. Salt water pollution and all this, so most of the people are not using the salt water to wash.
The Rai Coast has been declared safe for swimming. However, a community health worker from the Saidor Health Centre, Lynette Darwar, says people are still afraid of the ocean after some children went in to wash shortly after the spill.
Kids went down to the sea to have their washing. When they came out, they were screaming for their skin itchiness all over and they had blisters all over. People just rushed over and told them go to the river and wash with the fresh water. Now we stopped all the kids not to go and wash in the sea.
Ms Darwar says large marine mammals and fish have since been washing up dead.
We encountered a very big dolphin. It just washed up on the shore to our beach. Very big one. They buried it and then reported to the marine people. They came in. They told them to dig it up, and then when they dug it up, they just cut off the intestines and took it and went. And then we had a big turtle that died and washed out to the shore. And then another dugong died, washed up to the shore. And we had about 27 tuna, the very big ones. They all died same time. They just washed out to the shore and people got them and buried.
Another Saidor resident, Norman Nyack, says fishermen and Rai Coast communities that depend on seafood are now struggling. He says these are the same people that welcomed the mine.
We were all excited, thinking that it would be a change to bring development into the area. We were thinking that they would help in, constructing bridges or making a bit of improvement in the infrastructure there. But nothing had happened so far. And recently with the spill-off, seeing the ocean actually getting red, people were so scared and shouting, government has to put a stop to this mining. It has brought nothing, no development to the locals.
Lynette Darwar says people have become so frustrated they could retaliate against the miner.
This company is one of the greediest companies, doesn't provide anything good for the people. They have no roads, nothing good is done. Their primary schools, we have two secondary high school here, but they don't even support anything. Our health center is run down. They are doing nothing. That's one of the greedy companies working here in Papua New Guinea.
The mine's operator, the Metallurgical Corporation of China, has not responded to a request for comment. For Checkpoint, Ben Robinson-Drawbridge.
A biologist observing a seal who may have been shot at the weekend says the injury could change the cheeky mammal's behaviour forever. Resident leopard seal Orpha is a familiar face around Auckland's Waitemata Harbour, known for sunbathing on pontoons and nipping the odd inflatable dinghy. She was found bleeding from the head on Saturday from a suspected gunshot wound, an injury that might have permanent physical and behavioural effects. Our reporter Annika Smith has the story.
Orpha has become a household name around Auckland's Waitemata Harbour, making headlines when she pops up for some sunshine or the odd nosy at local rowers. However, her peaceful lifestyle was disturbed at the weekend after she was spotted with a suspected gunshot wound on her nose. Marine biologist Brittany Matthias from leopardseals.org has been working with Orpha since 2016. She popped down to West Haven Marina to check on the 3-metre creature this morning.
She's looking really good. She's stopped bleeding. She's resting normally. She's been seen swimming around the marina today, which is awesome.
Ms Matthias says while Ofa is on the mend, she isn't out of the woods. 3 separate vets have confirmed the bleeding is most likely the result of a bullet wound. Ms Matthias says a seal hasn't been seen putting her head underwater to feed yet, probably because the injury is still very sensitive.
We have discussed the possibility of providing her food with antibiotics and pain relief in it, but in the past we've had members of the public try and feed her fish and she hasn't eaten them, so we've decided not to go ahead with that option.
But Ms Matthias says pinnipeds, also known as seals, sea lions and walruses, are great healers. She says it's hoped Ofa will make a full recovery without any intervention.
Pinnipeds in general are incredible healers. So normally with injuries like this, they can heal without intervention. So we just need to keep monitoring her.
The Department of Conservation has confirmed it's already received a number of reports from the public about how Ofa got her injury. And Sea Shepherd is offering a $5,000 reward to anyone who has evidence that leads to the conviction of the person or persons responsible. The charity has successfully put up rewards for other high-profile seal abuse cases, and its managing director, Michael Laurie, hopes this case will be the same.
It's pretty disturbing because these are very, very special visitors to our shores and they deserve protection.
Mr Laurie says people have attacked seals in the past out of frustration their property is being damaged.
Ofa actually looks like she's destroyed about 60 inflatables, which I can see some people are frustrated. But again, this is a crime. These are really rare, amazing creatures from Antarctica, and we're privileged that they come here.
Ofa has never attacked anyone, but Ms Matthias worries the normally docile creature will change if she was deliberately shot.
It's absolutely heartbreaking because Ofa is not aggressive, and I guess one of our concerns is if it was done by a human, that she may end up starting to be more aggressive towards people because she becomes frightened of them.
Ms Matthias says anyone who sees Ofa is encouraged to stay at least 20 metres away from her and call the toll-free hotline 0800 Leopard. For now, a team are keeping a close eye on the seal and her/them as she recovers over the coming days. Mo te hōtaka o te ahi nei, ko Annika Smith-Aho.
And those pictures of Ofa will go up on our webpage. A quick bit of feedback from Liz. She says, I totally support Mike King's program, but expecting counsellors to work for free is unrealistic. It is time, Liz says, for the government and Ministry of Health to step up.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Former jailhouse lawyer Arthur Taylor has told the Royal Commission investigating state and faith-based abuse that a boys' home where he lived in the 1960s was ruled by fear. A Blenheim court has heard a witness in the case involving a former teacher convicted of sexual misconduct with students believed he was in a relationship with the woman. Mental health campaigner Mike King says the demand on his Gumboot fund, which has abruptly run out of money, will provide counselling for free for clients until a better solution is found. And a biologist looking after a seal, which was likely shot in the face at the weekend, says the injury could make the sea creature more aggressive. Those are the headlines. Our next news at 7.
Take the pulse of the day's news every weeknight at 10.
You think about a taxidermist and it's a guy and these big animals. History hasn't really recorded it as being something that women did. Who knows? We could be going there.
Live with local, national and international stories and some music with your news.
I know the Beatles well enough that I feel free to